On behalf of DCT's Srinivasa Senai College of Commerce and Economics, I extend a warm welcome to each one of you to this National Faculty Development Program on innovative teaching approaches in management and social sciences. This event has been organized in collaboration with our esteemed partner institutions, Chanakya University, Bengaluru, Choice College of Arts and Commerce, Pune, Swami Sahajanand College of Commerce and Management in Gujarat, and Bangalore College of Arts and Science in Goa. Behind every breakthrough lies a story of innovation and the courage to think differently. As we gather to share ideas and insights, let's remember that each one of us has the potential to inspire, change, and make a lasting impact. To officially commence today's session, we are honored to have with us the IQAC coordinator of Swami Sahajanand College of Commerce and Management, Gujarat, Dr. Professor He. Ma'am, over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening to one and all, respected dignitaries, esteemed faculty members, and dear participants. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this enlightening session on case-based teaching delivered by our distinguished speaker, Dr. Ganesh Prabhu. I am Dr. Heer Shah, IQAC coordinator at Swami Sahajanand College of Commerce and Management, Bhavnagar, Gujarat. And I have the honor of extending a warm welcome to everyone gathered here today. First and foremost, I'd like to convey the heartfelt greetings of our principal, Dr. Hetal Mehta, and our founder trustee, Professor Dr. Suresh Savani, who unfortunately are unable to be with us due to medical reasons. However, they have been a constant source of inspiration and support for all our academic endeavors, and their vision continues to shape the academic excellence and growth of this institution. I'm proud to share that Swami Sahajanand College of Commerce and Management is not only the only autonomous institution in Bhavnagar, Gujarat, but has also been accredited with a NAC B plus grade. This recognition reflects our continued commitment to providing quality education and fostering a dynamic academic environment for our students and faculty alike. This event is a collaborative effort between DCT's Srinivasa Sinai Dempo College of Commerce and Economics, Goa, and esteemed institutions DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Panji, Goa, Swami Sahajanand College of Commerce and Management, Bhavnagar, Gujarat, Chanakya University, Bengaluru, and Choice College of Arts and Commerce, Pune. I am deeply grateful to each of these institutions for their partnership which reflects the collective commitment towards advancing quality education and enriching academic practices. A special mention must go to our esteemed guests from DCT Srinivas Sinai Dempo College of Commerce and Economics, that is Professor Dr. Manoj Kamath, Principal, Professor Dr. Ravindranath Nayak, FDP Program Coordinator, Assistant Professor Tanya Shirodkar, BBA Program Coordinator. Your active involvement in today's session reflects the growing synergy between our institutions, and we look forward to much more such collaborations in the future. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Dr. Ganesh Prabhu, an expert in the field who will be taking us through the nuances of case based teaching. Case based learning is a powerful pedagogical approach that promotes critical thinking, problem solving, and real world application of knowledge, making it an invaluable tool for participants and educators alike. We are all eager to hear Dr. Prabhu's insights and experiences, which will no doubt enrich our teaching methodologies and inspire us to adopt more innovative approaches in our classrooms. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank all the participants, organizing team, and our esteemed speakers for their valuable time and effort in making this event possible. Let us make the most of this opportunity to learn, grow, and contribute to the advancement of education in our respective institutions. Once again, extend a warm welcome to everyone and hope you have a fruitful and engaging session ahead. Thank you, and over to you, Vaishnavi ma'am.
Thank you so much. Next, I would like to invite Assistant Professor Vishwa Raikar to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session, Dr. Ganesh Prabhu.
Good evening, everyone. It is my esteemed pleasure to introduce Dr. Ganesh Prabhu. Dr. Ganesh Prabhu is a professor of strategy and the chairperson of strategy area at Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. His areas of research and teaching are product innovation, strategic management, and entrepreneurship. He has published in three FT50 journals, namely Academy of Management Review, Research Policy, and Journal of Business Ethics, and was an invited editorial board member of an FT50 journal, which is Journal of Management, for over 3 years. He has also been on the Thesis Advisory Committee for over 40 doctoral students at IIM Bangalore. Over to you, sir.
Thank you.
You can begin the session.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for inviting me to do this session. What I will be doing in this session is to cover primarily case teaching. There is another set of things that we look at when we look at case writing, but case writing is not the focus of this session. It is on how do you use cases which are already available, either written by others or written by you, which can be used in the class, and how do you go about using them in the class in a more effective way. So that's the focus of this session. Now, to start with, we need to look at why are cases used as a pedagogy in management. It's a useful pedagogy in management, though every course does not have to use cases, but we have seen most courses may benefit from use of cases. So cases are a form of simulation. Of course, a simulation is a much more elaborate setup, but a case is a form of simulation where you put students in a situation that happened in a company in the past and help them go through the process of taking good decisions in that situation. So they are used very extensively because cases help students develop an analytical skill as well as a judgmental skill for taking a variety of managerial decisions. So you could have cases in marketing, cases in finance, cases in operations management, and cases in strategy, which is what I teach. And then there are cases in entrepreneurship. So every case brings in some new ideas and maybe helps the student understand something better, lets them deal with. Uh, yeah. Can you switch off the mics, please? Can you switch off the mics, please?
So just 1 minute, I'll take care of it. It's one of the participants. Give me.
Yeah. So
Yes,
cases help students develop analytical and judgmental skills for taking a variety of managerial decisions. Depending on the subject, the faculty can bring in cases which are relevant for that subject. Then cases also help students learn to ask good questions. So this is the reverse side. We are often we ask questions and students answer, but it's also important for students to ask the right questions or ask good questions so that you can probe the data in the case and get to good conclusions or suitable conclusions. And then cases, as a result of the larger number of cases we use, we also expose students to a variety of organizations and different types of managerial situations. So, for example, you may have an HR case where you're dealing with HR issues. Then you have organizational case where you deal with organizational issues. And every subject, you can have a case which focuses on that particular issue. And faculty basically can choose cases that suit the requirement of what they want to cover and see if you can bring in a case which suits that theme better and which helps you convey things which may not be or which may be drawn from real life practice. So this is the basic idea behind the case, and it has been used, I would say, for the last 100 years plus. Cases have been used very extensively in management. Of course, there are other fields in which cases are used. For example, lawyers, when they study law, they use cases. Medical students use cases to understand medical conditions better. So there are other subjects in which cases are used quite extensively. Management has been using cases for maybe 100 plus years, especially it's a little bit more recent than the other fields that I have mentioned. Now, how do you use cases? There are various ways in which cases can be used, and I'm just mentioning a few areas where it may be more suitable. So, we have what are called mini cases. Mini cases may be just half a page or a page in length. Typically, these mini cases are used to supplement the understanding of the text coverage. So, within a textbook in management, you would have some of these mini cases, which would be half a page in the textbook itself, which says that you learned something which is theory, maybe in economics or maybe in industry analysis, and then you have this mini case which illustrates what has been taught in the text. So, in the same case, the mini case which is in the text can be used for any further discussion if required. But essentially, the data available in that case is very limited, and the focus is on explaining what has been already said in the text. So that's how many cases appear in a textbook, and they are good in the sense that they help you understand a particular concept well. You can go back and use those mini cases to go back to if there is a longer case available or a short case available, but not a half page case, then you can probably pick it up if you think that theme is very useful and you can expand on it in the class. You want to use it over a longer duration in the session, you could go back and check if there is a longer case available. Typically, the textbook will have some reference to that. Then we have short cases. Short cases can be something like 4 to 5 pages, which are used in class. Primarily, the way it is used is that you can ask students to prepare presentations. Say that this is a situation in the case. Maybe 2 or 3 groups can be asked to prepare a presentation and come in class prepared, and then say what should be done in this situation given in the case. The presentations can be done first, and then the class can discuss whether which presentation or which are the suggestions that have been put forward are suitable, not suitable, and how they can be improved upon. So it can be a useful exercise for class, but a mini case may not be suitable for a student in class presentation. A short case typically is suitable for that. 4 or 5 pages of data is probably appropriate for the student to work in a group. Typically, they work in a group and they come in and present. And there are faculty who follow this method quite extensively. They don't sort of teach the case through the session, but they have 2, 3 groups presenting for about 10 to 15 minutes, 10 minutes typically, about what's the situation in the case and how do you address it. And since there are 3 groups presenting, there'll be contradicting views, or they may be opposed to each other, and then they would sort of argue their case or their suggestions on what should be done. That leads to a fairly lively session. Okay. Then the third one is what we call a long case. Long case would be something like 15 pages in length. That is the sort of case that is currently accepted by most case clearing houses, where they say that the case should not be longer than 15 minutes, 15 pages. Sorry. So a long case is 15 pages. It would have maybe about 8 to 10 pages of text and maybe 4 or 5 pages of diagrams or tables and so on. Now, these cases take some time to prepare, maybe an hour or two to prepare. And the advantage of these longer cases are they are more comprehensive, and you can use it over multiple sessions. So you can cover one theme in one session and then go to another theme in the next session. So it's possible to use cases over a longer period of time. And typically, you can pick a case which covers multiple issues and then use them for coverage over multiple sessions. So there are faculty who, for example, we have used a case over 5 or 6 sessions, which are largely concept driven, but then you use the case to illustrate the concept, and you can use different parts of the case to illustrate different concepts. Then the fourth one is video cases. Video cases are either made specifically for teaching purposes, or they may be already available. Some TV channel may have made a video about a company or made a feature about some entrepreneur, for example. Now, those video cases can be used in class. The advantage of a video case is that it's much more visual, and therefore it enhances the understanding a little bit better. People are more engaged with the video compared to text, and then you can actually show the video in the class and immediately start the discussion because everybody has seen the video at the same time. So video cases should not be very long. Typically 10 to 12 minutes is what video case should be. If it becomes too long, then students may lose interest, or the interest may, attention may not be there. But a 10 to 12-minute video is sufficiently long to provide most of the data required to do the analysis and the discussion in the class, but not so long that it becomes boring. So if a longer video exists, then ideally you should edit it for yourself and make sure that unnecessary things can be removed. For example, what I have done, for example, in a couple of BBC documentaries I have used in the class, the documentary typically is about 20 minutes. So that's too long to show in the class, but I have cut out those things which are not very essential and brought it down to maybe 12 minutes or 13 minutes. And that can be a much better, more effective way to start the class discussion. So 10 to 12 minutes is what I would suggest as the ideal length for a typical video case. And editing, of course, can be done. We can do it ourselves. There are now software available where you can just mark out the start and stop timings and look at it and see that it's hardly, even if it is noticeable that there is a break, you can say that, well, this is an edited version of the video. Of course, the edited version should not go outside. I mean, don't pass it to other people because it's not necessarily acceptable for you to edit somebody else's work. But as long as you're using it for your own session, it's fine. If you pass it on to other people, it becomes a violation of copyright. Now, within videos, if it's a publicly available video, you can actually use it in class. There is really no issue with that. If it's a private video, or if if you have bought the video commercially, which means, let's say you bought a DVD which has the video in it, then there is a requirement for you to get specific permission. But typically, if videos are used for classroom purposes and uh, there is no question of you charging a ticket for people to see the video, then there is no issue. So it's called generally it's acceptable to use videos for educational purposes. But if you use the video for, let's say, training purposes, where you're charging students, executives for money and all that, there is a little bit of a question mark whether it can be used in that manner. But mostly it's not a problem. It is, especially if it's a publicly available video, you can just open the YouTube website and show it from there itself. So it does not really a problem that you are using the video in the class. But there are permissions if you are using a commercial. If you have privately purchased the video, then there is some question about whether that is acceptable or not. But these are not serious concerns. Even if you write to the producer, for example, they will readily give permission because you are, in a sense, helping them popularize their work. So they are happy to give permission, and they will typically not charge anything for that. So That's how videos are. So video cases are a very useful option. And in the past, whenever there is an opportunity, I have tried to identify videos that I can use in class and then keep a repository of such videos wherever possible can be used in class. So that's what we can do. So there is a lot of preparation that is required when you are working, especially when you are teaching using the case method. So one first, of course, is developing a case-based course outline, including structuring a course more effectively with cases. So the basic idea is when we, for example, in IMB, we are free to use as many cases as we want. There is no restriction on number of cases that can appear in a course. So some of our courses, for example, the strategy area course would have in 20 sessions, we would have probably 15 or 15 cases which are covered. And these are typically long cases. So that's a bit unusual. Many other courses would have less than 15 cases, including this, for example, the entrepreneurship course that we have. They also have a few cases, but not typically long cases and so many cases. So what happens there is that you build the course outline based on the themes that you're trying to cover, and then you identify which case suits a particular theme very well. So, for example, if there is a case which is very detailed in terms of the industry level data, then you can use that case for industry analysis. But if there is very little data about the industry available in the case, then it's a misfit for the industry analysis session. So while you need to do industry analysis, probably in that situation also, but there may not be data available for you to do a reasonably detailed job. So identifying cases which are suitable for each session, whether there is enough data there, whether the theme is adequately covered, that is the focus of the choice that you're making. And then the course case-based course outline will be having those cases mentioned in for session by session, saying that this is the first case, second case, third case, and this is the day in which the case will be discussed. And then we give out the cases to the students in advance. They have to read the case before the session. So this is again a very important activity. Many sometimes students may not read the case and come to the class, in which case they may not be able to follow what's happening. So it's very important to set the discipline early in the session, saying that you must read the case and come to class. One way of ensuring that some people at least have read the case is to ask them to submit an evaluation. Okay, so if they so you need to structure the course in which maybe if you can have some evaluation for some case activity. For example, you can ask groups to prepare a case report and submit to you before the class, before the case is discussed. Then obviously they would have been prepared with the case, and they would participate in the class when the discussions happen. Similarly, you can have, for example, what we call a case-based quiz. We can have just 5 minutes in the beginning of the class where students are asked to answer some very simple questions relating to the case, but it ensures that all of them have read the case. Otherwise, they can't answer that quiz, because even though the case is with them, it is not possible within 5 minutes to check the case and write the answers. So unless you've read it in advance, you can't do it. So these are some of the things that are used by faculty to ensure that students are prepared with the case. The second part is deciding on the appropriate level to pitch the case. So it depends on how well the class is prepared. You can pitch it at a higher level if you feel that students are able to absorb it well. And if students are having difficulty, then you might pitch it at a lower level. So this is again some activity that we do. Uh, there is also sorry, this, I don't know why this moves. So developing a course outline is one. Then identifying a appropriate mix of cases and other teaching methods to make the course effective. We may use, apart from cases, we may have mini lectures, or we may have a simulation game. For example, in the strategy course, we have a simulation game that takes a couple of sessions, which is very effective. So we have a mix of pedagogy, but cases will probably dominate the methods used. Then we have also to ensure that along with the case, there is a specific reading which has been attached, or there is a textbook chapter which is relevant to the case, which they also have to cover. And then finally, we have to balance the workload, which means case assignments are spread across the term, maybe one case assignment in the pre-midterm, one case assignment in the post-midterm, and you have a midterm exam which is case-based, you have an end-term exam which is case-based. So this is how we typically structure the course to ensure that all students are not overloaded at the same time. So the load is getting spread across the term. So that's another consideration, especially if you have long cases. It takes some time to prepare, and you cannot overload the students on one subject and prevent them from preparing for other subjects. So this is one set of preparatory work that is required. In terms of issues that we look at, I already mentioned about how to pitch the case in the right level. What are the weights for different components of student evaluation? So we use cases for exams also. So what we do in that case situation is we prepare a key which is used by the evaluator to evaluate the answer scripts. So either the faculty evaluates, in some cases we have teaching assistants who are evaluating the case. So to ensure that the evaluation is fair, we have to have some sort of a key which is developed, where the most likely answers or the expected answers are written out, and all the evaluators agree to it. So therefore the evaluation is consistent with across students. So that's again a important consideration. This is not like a maths problem where there's one answer. There may be multiple answers, but you have to say, well, if this answer gets you 3 marks, this answer gets 2 marks, and this one is an inadequate answer, therefore it gives you one mark or whatever. So those are the ways by which we apply weights for the student evaluation. Then we also have two ways in which case-based exams are done. So one is you can give a case, but the exam itself is a closed book exam, which means that um, they cannot carry any other material. They just have to, you will just give them a question paper with the case, and they have to use their memory or whatever they have learned to answer. That's an effective mode because, especially when you are testing whether people have understood concepts, they don't have a chance to go back and look at it again to see whether that's appropriate. So if you are, for example, in subjects where you're testing concepts and you're seeing whether they can apply it to a case, a closed book examination is suitable. Suppose you are actually looking at whether they're able to think through, and whatever details they have, the textbook is available, everything is available, are you able to think through and answer, then an open book exam is suitable. We use both of these modes. I typically use open book exams, where you are basically asking them to apply what you've learned to the particular case scenario, and then well, if they answer appropriately, they would get marks. Otherwise, they don't get marks. So the way we are looking at this is that, are you able to apply what you have learned in the classroom to a particular specific case situation? And you are allowed to refer to the textbook. You are allowed to refer to your own notes, etc. So you don't have to rely on memory here. But the question, what you are evaluating is whether you can formulate a good answer and write it down. So both closed book and open book systems are possible to use. Then managing the class process is again a complex process. It sort of gets understood over time. When we start doing case-based teaching, we may not be able to manage the class process very well, but it sort of settles over a period of time. Now, what we are essentially doing in the class is that we have a set of questions that we are going to ask in the class to prompt a discussion. Those may not be very obvious questions, but we have a few questions that we ask. Mostly, if you are using a published case, you might have what is called a teaching note, which is available along with the case. And you can prepare using the teaching note. But one of the issues with teaching notes is that while it is supposed to be available only with the faculty, sometimes students get access to teaching notes through some mode or the other. I mean, for example, if you ask for a teaching note from Harvard Business School, they will check whether they will send you an SMS. They'll verify that the faculty indeed is asking for it, and then only the teaching note is sent. But sometimes, maybe the faculty has given a teaching note to a teaching assistant, and that assistant has passed it on. So those sort of things can result in teaching notes being available to students also. So that can be a problem, because then what happens is they, instead of learning from the case, they just go and reel out what is said in the teaching note in the class. And it's easy to figure that out, because they would just mention what's in the teaching note without necessarily fully understanding why that has been mentioned in the teaching note. So teaching notes are good to use, but sometimes you are better off making your own notes about how you want to run a case, and maybe over 3-4 cycles you have a good set of notes about how to run a case. So what we do typically is we do repeat cases, but we also try out new cases. So what I have found useful is whenever I want to use a new case, I try to use it in the PGP program, in the 2-year MBA program. That's where I use cases for the first time. And then if a case is good, then I use it in executive programs or in other types of situations. But PGP is where I test out every new case, because typically what happens is if you use a new case in the PGP class, the sort of discussion that happens is much higher. There is enough, they have class participation marks. They want to show that they have understood, or they want to say something new. So the typical discussion that happens in PGP is at a higher level, and therefore it helps you improve on the case, or improve on how you'll use the case the next time round. So even if it's a completely new case, or I have written the case and I want to test it out, I use it in the PGP class first to make sense of how to take it forward. So even for example, when you write a case, you have to also write the teaching note. So the teaching note typically is written after using it in class for the first time, typically in the PGP 2-year MBA class. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is at the end of the year, we can ask students, or even in the middle of the year, you can ask students to comment on which cases you used and how they liked it. So that's just it's not something that is necessary to use, but you can get a sense of, okay, these are the cases which got students interested, or these are the cases which made them think differently. So that's something that students will talk about. So if you ask, what we used to do is we would pass on a questionnaire which mentions all the cases by name, and saying that how do you rate this case and why. And the very simple questionnaire is not a reflection, it's not your teaching that is being evaluated, but it's the case, suitability of the case which is being evaluated by the student, and you can get some very good feedback there. You can check which cases got them interested, which cases they thought were very boring and not very useful. So that is something that you can learn. So using student feedback and making it mid-course corrections as and when required, plus also to evaluate which cases you want to retain, which cases you want to replace, that also can be learned this way. And then at the end of the term, of course, students give feedback for revision. So you can use that feedback to revise the course content. You can revise the delivery. Of course, you are not going to make drastic changes just because some topic is boring doesn't mean you drop it. What is to be covered in a particular course has to be covered. But then you can use the feedback to see if certain sessions are very heavy and you can convey them in a slightly better way. Some things are too obvious. Maybe you want to make the session a bit more uh, richer in content. So those type of questions, those type of issues can be understood using the feedback at the end of the session. So this is an ongoing process, especially when multiple faculty teach at the same time. For example, we have 8 sections in the PGP at IMB, and typically 6 faculty might teach the course. 2 faculty may teach to 2 sections each, and they will typically meet after every week. The sessions are done. You can have a meeting where they are the discussion can happen in terms of how a particular case went, especially if it's a new case. You might want to take some notes on what worked, what did not work, what aspects got missed out in the discussion, had to be conveyed by the faculty, and what are the things that students immediately caught on and talked about early in the discussion. So those are basically pointers for you to understand which case works well, which case does not work well, and you use that acquired understanding to rework on your cases for the next term. There are certain cases which we use, which we call classic cases. Those classic cases we typically will not drop. For example, in the strategy course, there is a case on Coke versus Pepsi. Now that's called a classic case, and whichever last 20 years, 25 years, we have taught the core course. We have never dropped that case. We might use a new version of the case. We may not use an old version, but Coke versus Pepsi is something that every MBA student has to go through to say that they are MBAs. So that's how we look at it. So there are some classic cases which we'll use every year. For example, another important case in the strategy course is the Walmart case. So that again, there's a lot you can learn from the Walmart case, but we may use a newer version of the case. There are also famous cases, like for example, Southwest Airlines is a famous case in strategy. Again, almost all courses would have a Southwest airline case. So there are some cases which we use repeatedly, and then of course some cases which are India based, which are suitable and can replace. So for example, instead of using Southwest, you can replace it with the Indian airline industry. You don't have to necessarily use Southwest, even though it's a classic case. In the if there is a equally well written case which is based in India, you might find that more suitable for covering what you want to cover. So this is how the case selection and use of feedback is typically done. Okay, I'll stop here. If there are any questions, we can address them. Um, so we have another 20 odd minutes to cover. So please ask questions orally. Don't put them in the chat box, or if it is put in the chat box, one of you can read out the question to me and I will answer it orally.
Yes. Requesting participants to kindly raise their hand to get the necessary permission in case you are willing to ask any questions, or you can drop them on WhatsApp group or here in the chat box. I'll be happy to read them out for you.
Sure. Can I stop sharing and then I can see everybody?
Okay, sir. So we have about 2 to 3 of them typing currently on our group.
Yeah,
So I'll read them out to you
good.
once it's okay.
Yes. Please read it out. That'll
Um,
be okay. Yeah.
so they're still typing. So here's the first question.
Ah.
Can a case study be fictional?
Yes. So case studies can be fictional. It is typically not a common practice to use fictional cases because students, if they understand that it is fictional, they would not take it seriously. So you say, well, you have cooked up a story. It is not a real thing, and therefore, uh, what you are saying is, whatever you say may be right or wrong depending on how you have created the story. So, um, fictional cases are generally avoidable, but if there is a possibility of using a fictional case because the real case cannot be written, that means there is no permission to write the real case, but you can maybe modify every detail about the case and then write it up so that the original organization cannot be identified. That becomes like a fictional case that is sometimes used. You have to be very careful not to reveal anything because when you write a case, you have to get permission from the company. If you don't take permission from the company and write a case and use it, you are basically in violation of the company's rights. So it can be a big problem. You can get sued for that. But it's possible to write a case entirely on secondary information, which means you don't talk to anybody from the company. You just use secondary data, newspaper reports, public data, whatever is there, and you write up the case. So that is okay. So then there is no need to ask permission. You have to just mention that it is only based on public data, and you have to give all the references that you used to write the case. So that is also an acceptable way to do it. But fictional cases are basically completely written like a story. That makes sense in some cases, but it's not really a very common practice. And especially if you write a fictional case, it is difficult to publish it because the publisher will say, I can't, there is no, this we cannot count as a case, it can't be published. So if there is a fictional case which already exists, you can use it. But if you write a fictional case, it's hard to publish it. Most case clearinghouses will say, sorry, we don't publish fictional cases. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, we have two others typing. I'll let you know once the questions are. Requesting participants to kindly raise their hands if they have any questions, or you can drop them here on the WhatsApp group. So the person who had asked the previous question as a continuation, he is just informing you that he was asking the same for his own classroom.
Yeah, you can use the fictional case. The only issue is that students may lose interest in the fictional case, saying that it is fictional after all, and we are not taking a real life decision. So the idea of the case is that it should be representing a real life situation. Then only you are uh, discussing with some seriousness. So the seriousness might be lost if it's a fictional case. That's the only issue. I have myself used fictional cases. One case which I wrote, which is a fictional case, was actually a modified version of the real life data. So basically, the real life data has been used, but the story has been fictionalized. That's another option. So The reason why it was fictionalized was because the real company could not be mentioned. So that's how it was done. Yes. So Jacqueline has raised their hand. Please answer. Please ask. Yeah.
Yes. Ms. Jacqueline, I've given you the necessary permission to participate. Kindly accept and ask your question. Ms. Divya, I've given you the permission. Kindly answer.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yes. Please ask directly. I'm not able to hear anything.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Now you're audible. Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is Divya Lalwani from Podar College, Mumbai.
Ah,
So usually in the classes, what we encourage our faculty members to do is that we bring a particular case study, we discuss it in the class. There are some case studies, as you rightly said, that do not give you the necessary permissions. But when we are actually presenting that in the form of a fictional case study, what we are really doing is that the name has been changed,
mm,
the data is kept intact,
mm,
the graphs are shared, any information in the tabular form available is shared in the class. The
mm.
understanding that is there in the class is that just the name of that particular company or that particular situation has been masked.
Mm.
So we are not really making a modification, we are just
Yeah.
masking,
Yeah.
we are masking the relevant areas.
Yes.
So this also, I know, so this also classifies under a fictional case because the name is not given. But
Yeah.
what we are really doing in class is that we leave it to the
Yeah.
imagination of the learner
Yeah.
to put a
So
particular name.
that's okay. You
Huh.
can mention that while the name and the character's name have
Yeah,
been changed, this is actually drawn from a real situation.
exactly.
So
Yes, sir.
to say
Yes, sir.
that, then it works reasonably well. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. That's what sir. I also want to just clarify because just
Yeah.
by masking also it is fine, right? So
Yeah.
we can easily do it in this form.
But you have to be careful that the original, I mean, the company is not revealed in some manner.
Yes, sir.
That
Yes, sir.
that should not happen. So you have to
Yes,
be
sir. All
very careful.
names are masked. So there's no
Yeah.
name that is revealed
Yeah.
whatsoever. In fact, we even go on to further masking, one or two extra characters so that nobody tries to guess the name of the company also.
Okay.
Because with a number of characters also people can, land up guessing the name of the
Yeah.
company. So we do adequate so that, they don't
So
try and total the
yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're dealing with smaller companies, easy to mask. If it's a large
Yeah.
company, it becomes very difficult to mask that
Huh.
because it's very easily identifiable. You can't really
Exactly.
have a
Yes, sir.
case being masked. It doesn't make sense
Yeah.
because you
Correct.
can we figure it out, right? So
Correct. And at the time of solving that particular case study, we leave it to the learners, to put a
yes,
name. So we
yes,
encourage them to use their creativity and to put a name that they think, should be the name of the company and
yeah,
thereby solve the case study. So
okay,
that way, each answer is also different from the other. So you don't get a stereotype answer as well.
okay, okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Jacqueline, can you?
So we have a question from Hemant. So Hemant, he asks, sometimes in case study discussions, people have different views on that. Then how to arrive to a conclusion?
Well, in a case, of course, different views will be there. The faculty should have their own view about what is a most appropriate approach to and using whatever uh, tools and techniques that have been taught in the class. So we use the tools and techniques, you use the approach that has been covered in the class, and you apply it to the case. What is the most likely suitable course of action? That is what you have to work on. Now, it's possible that some students will come up with something that's quite tangential. The question then is whether that tangential thing is justified or not. So sometimes students may say, well, they can do something XYZ, but they should be able to justify it, or they should be able to back up that statement, right? So if it is not easy to back up that statement, for example, it may be a small company which has very limited resources, and the student may say, well, you can enter 10 countries in Europe or something like that. And you can easily see that there is no money or there is no resources for this company to do such a thing. Then it becomes obvious that you should point that out. You say you can't go into something where you don't have any basis to say that this can be done. On the other hand, if you take, for example, a company which is doing extremely well in India, it has a lot of resources, and you say, well, they can go and acquire a company in another country. Well, that's a reasonable option, and you can say, well, you can back up that option by saying, we have the resources, we know how to run this business well, and we want to buy out this company and turn it around and make it run better. That's why we are acquiring it. So these type of questions can be backed up by adequate data and reasoning. That is what is required. So the faculty should push the reasoning in the class. That's all.
Sir, if I may be allowed to interject, this is exactly the reason why we do case studies, because we allow the learner to use his or her own imagination, to use their knowledge, to the perception, the understanding, and thereby solve the case study. So there can never be a perfect right or a perfect wrong answer. Like as you rightly said, the faculty will also have a role to play.
Ah,
No, but what is important is to point out bad answers. So while
yes,
there may
True,
not
true.
be one good answer,
Achha, we try to
one
preach
Yeah.
the
right
fact
answer,
that
but multiple
women
questions,
are
multiple
power with
answers may be
men.
okay, and some
Huh.
answers may be bad. So you should be able to point.
Yes. Of course, of course. If they are absolutely tangent, then it's a no-no. But otherwise, it kind of stays in the given framework. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes.
So another question that's coming your way. Um, by Dr. Geeta Kaushik Gupta. She asks, difference between caselets and cases, when to use and how.
Difference between caselets and hello.
Cases, when to use
Caselets
and
and
how.
cases, yeah. So caselets are basically, as I mentioned, something which is given as an illustration. So typically a caselet is only an illustration of some concept. So it may, for example, there's a chapter on industry analysis in the textbook, and they may have a small caselet on the toy industry and show that the toy industry is the most competitive industry in the world. Okay, so they will say the toy industry is the most competitive industry in the world, and these are the reasons why it is so competitive. So it is showing an extreme case, right? So not all companies, not all industries are as competitive as the toy industry. So it is illustrating an extreme case, and that gives you an idea about why what it means to be in an extremely competitive industry. So the toy industry represents that. So you can see all the features mentioned in that caselet, which indicates why it is extremely competitive. And then you can see, well, other industries are not as competitive. For example, if you are in steel, for example, it's not as competitive as the toy industry. You can see the difference, but the caselet is basically showing one example or illustration of the application of the case. So that's how a caselet is used in a textbook. And you can use the caselet to also explain how that concept has been applied. So when we talk about industry analysis, we say these are the different levels at which competition exists. But once you see an extreme case, then it becomes easier to say, okay, uh, this industry you say is very competitive, but not as competitive as toy industry. So therefore, it becomes easier to calibrate. So that's how typically a caselet is used. A case is used for a much more elaborate or more complex decisions. Yes, there are some people who raised their hands. Please ask directly.
So I've given them the necessary permissions requesting Ma'am Jacqueline. You could speak.
Pepsi bar. Yeah. Yeah, it's muted. You're muted.
So they have to accept my request to.
Yeah. Anybody else? You can go ahead.
Participants, kindly note we take one last question. So if any one of you all have any questions, kindly raise your hand.
If there are any text questions, you can ask them. Yeah.
No, sir. No more text questions here.
This
Yes, last call for one last question. Participants, kindly note another question and we will be concluding the session.
Sir, is there any way that we as participants could get a preview into certain good case studies that we can put to use, maybe in some common papers, like any related to management or related to commerce? Would you want to recommend any such link that we could probably click and we would be able to get access to those case studies, if it can be shared with us at a later point in time?
So we use a variety of case sources. So one is the Asian Case Research Journal. So those cases are available. So you can, they are freely available. You go to the website of the Asian Case Research Journal. You can find those cases. Every issue will have 4 to 5 cases. But you have to evaluate yourself whether it's suitable for your. So you have to read the abstract, make sense of whether the case is relevant for what you're teaching. So Asian
Huh.
Case Research Journal is one where there are lots of cases, again freely available. There is Asian Journal of Management Cases, AJMC. That's published from Lahore and from LUMS, Lahore University of Management Sciences. A lot of Indian cases are available in both these journals, Asian Case Research Journal and Asian Journal of Management Cases. And then there is also a US journal called Case Research Journal, but I don't think it's publicly available, so I've not been able to find things there. And then there are case repositories from India also. There are 2, 3 journals which are publishing cases from India. I think I am Indore has a journal which has cases. I have used some cases from there. So their official journal of I am Indore will have one case in every issue, and those are also Indian cases, typically quite useful. These are like public sources in the sense that they are already available to anyone. Then there are other sources like the Harvard Business School collection. The INSEAD has its own collection. Then, uh, so there are what they are called case clearing houses. And then there is one major collection of Indian cases which is published by Times. Times, that is the Times of India, has its own case collection. I am not able to recall the name. I have some cases in that collection also. There, the listed the Times collection is available. You can see all the cases listed on their website. And if you want to buy a case, you'll have to buy it outright. So that's how it works. But I think you can also download a sample for faculty purposes. So all these places, if you register as a faculty, you have free access to the cases. If you want to issue it to students, then only you have to pay for those cases. So that's actually there are lots of cases available in the public domain. easily accessible. You have to make an evaluation of whether you want to use it and how you want to use it.
Thank you, sir. That was really informative. Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, I believe we can conclude this session.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. As we conclude this enriching session, we invite I'm sorry for that. Mr.
Yeah.
Baloch, kindly put off your camera.
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Yes. On behalf of DCT's Srinivasa Sinaidam College of Commerce and Economics, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Ganesh Prabhu for sharing his time, expertise, and insights on case-based teaching, a powerful method for developing practical insights and critical thinking in students. Thank you, sir, for the valuable session. I would also like to thank all the participants for their keen engagement, which has contributed significantly to the success of today's session. Further on, this event has been made possible through our collaboration with Chanakya University, Bengaluru, Choice College of Arts and Commerce, Pune, Swami Sahajanand College of Commerce and Management, Gujarat, and Dempe College of Arts and Science, Goa. Your presence and participation have been invaluable in creating a shared space for learning and growth. As we look ahead, let me give you a quick preview of tomorrow's session, where we have Dr. Vipul Mathur speaking on application of AI for classroom management and assessment. I'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
You may feel free to use the recording for anybody else who wants to go through it. They can go through the recording. Thank you.
Yes, that would be helpful, sir. Thank you so much.